vielleicht nur als Impulsant.
Hello and welcome. You're watching Race to Power. My name is Mohammed Saleh. And on the show today, will Venezuela now turn into another battleground for a proxy war between the United States and Russia? The American president announces that the United States could begin attacks on Venezuelan soil pretty soon. Russia has now assured Nicolas Maduro that he will have Russia's backing. And in Thailand, Prime Minister Anutin Charnvirakul has now moved to dissolve the parliament and to clear the way for some early elections. But let's of course start with this big story that we are tracking on Race to Power tonight. Are the global superpowers now preparing for a showdown in Venezuela? The fear is growing as the United States continues to step up economic and military pressure to oust President Nicolas Maduro a day after the United States seized an oil tanker off the coast of Venezuela. Now, Trump has said that the land strikes on the alleged drug shipments are coming pretty soon. Now, Trump in fact told the reporters at the White House that the United States will soon begin strikes to interdict the narcotics shipments making their way from Venezuela to the United States via land routes. Now, the United States is already conducting strikes on alleged drug boats in the Caribbean.
It has to do with a lot of things. They've treated us badly, and I guess now we're not treating them so good. If you look at the drug traffic by sea is down 92%. And nobody can figure out who the 8% is because I have no idea. Anybody getting involved in that right now is not doing well. And we'll start that on land, too. It's going to be starting on land pretty soon.
Now, the United States has also piled economic pressure on Maduro. It has imposed some fresh sanctions on 3 of his relatives alongside 6 companies shipping the South American country's oil. And amidst heightened tension, support for Maduro has also poured in from the Russian President Vladimir Putin. Now, according to the Kremlin, Putin spoke to Maduro over a phone call and has reassured him of Moscow's support for his government. And later, speaking about the phone call, Maduro has described Putin as an elder brother and also as a brave friend. The Venezuelan president said that the 2 leaders spoke at length and Putin has offered some unwavering support to Venezuela.
Among many things, we spoke at length, and he said, "I want to express my admiration for the example of courage shown by the people of Venezuela in the circumstances they have had to face. And I want you to know that we give unwavering support to the Venezuelan process, to President Maduro, and to your efforts to defend your national sovereignty and the peace of the entire South American region."
And Moscow's show of solidarity has come just a day after the U.S. troops seized a Venezuelan oil tanker in the Caribbean Sea. While the White House has said that Trump is not interested in a prolonged war in Venezuela, there could be more action coming. Reports now suggest that Washington has assembled a target list of several more sanctioned tankers for possible seizure. Now, Maduro has been a long-time ally of the Russian President Vladimir Putin. In the month of May this year, he visited Moscow and the 2 countries signed a comprehensive treaty on strategic partnership and cooperation. And over the years, Moscow has stood by Maduro's government in the face of international pressure. Now, with the United States not ruling out a land invasion, the Caribbean is now on a knife's edge. The timing of Moscow's reassurance to Maduro is hard to miss. The region could transform into a new theater of war, with the 2 superpowers now competing to assert their dominance in the region. All right, now joining us on the broadcast, we've got Mr. Diego Sequeira, who's a political analyst, a journalist, and also a columnist, and he works in the independent Mission Verdad outlet. Mr. Sequeira, thank you very much indeed for joining us here on WION. Let me actually start in by asking you your views on how things are being perceived in Venezuela ever since the United States of America seized that oil tanker that belonged to Venezuela. What is the mood like out there, and has this now made it abundantly clear as to what the real objective of the Americans is?
It is abundantly clear. It was already abundantly clear with the whole drug trafficking narco state spin. It just shows, I mean, how precisely that previous narrative wore out, and now we have a more direct approach of what they actually are into and what they actually are interested. And also, it ramps up not only on the, let's call it the military front, with the whole ramp up and the kinetic action that might have been happening the last almost 4 months, but also the economic terrorism as a tool for pressure and to force and intensify the psychological pressure inside Venezuela, which I might add, it's not working as they expect.
All right, and also the assurance that is coming from Russia that the Venezuelans will have the Russian back. How reassured are the people of Venezuela, and what difference do you think the Russians now stating that Venezuela will have Russian help makes to this?
Venezuela already has Russian help, and it has, like you already mentioned, a comprehensive agreement. This is one of these manifestations, not only of help and closeness, but also practical support. So in that sense, it's there. And this also in the recent phone call, and not only Putin, but also Mr. Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister's statement, shows that how this support is being expressed publicly.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Mr. Sequeira, for joining us from Caracas and getting us those insights there.
Thank you.
All right, let's now shift our attention to the other big story that we are tracking on Race to Power, where a highly charged meeting took place within the corridors of power in the United States. The lawmakers from the Democrat Party trained their guns on Kristi Noem. Now, she's in fact the U.S. Homeland Security Secretary. Noem was testifying in front of the House Committee on Homeland Security, and it was the first time that she had appeared before the Congress since the month of May. And it seems that the Democrats did not want to waste the opportunity. Now, they were very keen to grill her about a number of issues, but especially the mass deportations being conducted by the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Now, ICE is under the supervision of the Department of Homeland Security.
Madam Secretary, how many United States military veterans have you deported?
Sir, we have not deported U.S. citizens or military veterans.
Madam Secretary, we are joined on Zoom by a gentleman named Sejun Park. He is a combat veteran, a Purple Heart recipient. He has sacrificed more for this country than most people ever have. Earlier this year, you deported him to Korea, a country he hasn't lived in since he was 7 years old. Will you join me in thanking Mr. Park for his service to our country?
Now, that was one of the 3 deportation cases related to U.S. military veterans that the Democrat lawmaker brought up. Representative Magziner then pointedly asked Kristi Noem if she wanted to thank the veterans for their service to the United States. And he went on to state that she did not know as to how to tell the difference between the good guys and the bad guys. The hearing didn't just focus on immigration, though. Kristi Noem was also asked about the seizure of the Venezuelan oil tanker on Wednesday. She called it a successful operation against the Venezuelan government. Now, there were also questions about domestic terror within the United States and as to how the FBI is going after anti-fascist movement Antifa.
So where is Antifa headquartered?
What we're doing right now with the organization.
Where in the United States does Antifa exist? If it's a terrorist organization, and you've identified it as number 1.
And amidst the Far East session, a Democrat from Illinois called for a probe of Noem for possible impeachable offenses. She spoke about how Noem violated the U.S. court orders by not turning around the deportation flights that were bound for El Salvador. The Democrat eventually said this.
You lie with impunity. You reject checks and balances, and you ignore Congress and the courts. Your options are limited. Either you're going to resign, Trump's going to fire you, or you will be impeached.
The grilling lasted for about 2 hours before Kristi Noem cut it short. She said that she had to depart early for another meeting. All right, now to tell us more on this, we join in this broadcast by our correspondent Susan Tehrani, who's joining us live from New York. Susan, this is an interesting grilling that Kristi Noem was subjected to. Tell us more about this case of some of these U.S. Army veterans who in fact been deported as a part of this crackdown on immigration by the ICE department.
Yeah, that was interesting that that senator brought that one case forward. You know, there are individuals that have been in the United States. They didn't get their citizenship, but they did live like ordinary Americans. And it was during the time of President Obama. He labeled them as dreamers. And this has been really at the heart of the immigration debate for years. You know, and I think the Democrats wanted to seize this moment and talk about immigration with Noem because it's still between the first and third issue that Americans are concerned about. Illegal immigration, legal immigration, and how it's being dealt with, notably by the Trump administration. And Noem was continuously pushing back. There is no really good answer or a quick answer to how this immigration crisis in the United States can be resolved. But when it comes to illegal immigration, I think the Democrats realize that with the midterms about 11 months away, this plays into the American feelings. And it also is a motivating factor to get voters out, whether you're on the left or the right. But nonetheless, the United States and Kristi Noem, the government, the White House, insists that while there is criticism about the speed and scope about how these deportations are happening, they're still overwhelmed and they're not breaking any rules or laws. And I think it was interesting that during that hearing, Kristi Noem said that you can criticize how the administration is operating, but we're not operating outside the corridors of the U.S. Constitution or the law. If you don't like the law, then you are Congress, you are the Senate, then you should change the law, and then, you know, we can talk about this. So she also had some tough words for those lawmakers, but nonetheless, it just shows how conflicting and how important the issue of immigration continues to be.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Susan Tehrani, for joining us with all those updates then. All right, now, since his return to the White House in January this year, the American President Donald Trump has claimed that the American economy is clearly on the rise. More specifically, Trump claims that credit for creating what he calls the greatest economy in American history. That is what he claims. But he's also having a bit of a hard time convincing his fellow Americans about this. A new poll now shows that his approval ratings on the question of economy have hit a new low. According to the poll, only about 31% of the U.S. adults have approved of his handling of the American economy, down from 40% in the month of March. The poll was conducted by the Associated Press and the University of Chicago. Now, Trump fumed at the numbers. In a post on Truth Social, Trump claimed that he had inherited a mess from his predecessor, Joe Biden. Now, Trump further lamented that he had turned the economy around and made it, quote-unquote, the greatest in America's history, but that he gets no credit for it. Now, the polls also paint a pretty grim picture of Trump's handling of immigration, and according to the survey, only about 38% of the American adults have approved of his handling of immigration, which is the lowest since he polled 49% in the month of March this year. The Trump administration has lately come under pressure over the issue of affordability. And last month, the Democrats have swept key governor races in New Jersey and Virginia. When Zohran Mamdani clinched the New York City mayoral election, the issue of affordability featured prominently in all these elections, and many within Trump's own Republican Party have called on the administration to focus on solving the cost of living crisis. Now, Indiana's lawmakers have dealt a blow to the American President Trump's nationwide push to install more Republican-friendly maps. The state Senate has rejected a new congressional map that would have boosted the Republican chances of keeping control of the U.S. House of Representatives. Now, what's interesting is that more than half of the Republican senators had joined all 10 Democrats in voting against the bill. And the final tally was 31-19 against the legislation. The Trump administration has in fact been urging the Republicans nationwide to redraw their congressional maps in an unusual campaign to help the party maintain its thin majority in the U.S. House. The Texas, Missouri, Ohio and North Carolina went along, but Indiana did not. Now, President Trump has threatened to support electoral challenges to any Republican senators who have refused to vote in favor of the map, calling several people out by name in a series of hostile social media posts leading up to the Thursday's vote. And after the vote, Trump said that the new map would have been nice and could have resulted in 2 additional Republican seats. But he downplayed his role in the issue, saying that he hadn't been working on it very hard. But he still took a shot at Indiana Senate's pro tem president, Roderick Bray, who opposed the redistricting. And Trump said that he hoped that Bray lost his next primary because he's done a great disservice. In a major political shift in Thailand, Prime Minister Anutin Charnvirakul has now moved to dissolve the parliament and to clear the way for early elections. And the announcement has come against the backdrop of a political deadlock with the main opposition party and conflict with Cambodia that has claimed the lives of at least about 20 people and has wounded 200 others. In a post on social media, the Thai Prime Minister said that he is returning power to the people, now clearing the way for elections earlier than previously anticipated. And according to the Thai constitution, polls must be held within 45 to 60 days, which essentially means that polls are expected around the end of January or early February.
If we base the election procedure in the past, an election would be held within 60 days, though sometimes it doesn't fit right on the exact number of 60 days. You have to calculate which Sunday it would fall on. Then the election result will need to be approved within 45 days, and then another month to set up a government. Every incumbent government will be relieved of duty once the new government is inaugurated by the king. I think all this would take around 5 to 6 months.
In September, Anutin had said that he was planning to dissolve the parliament by the end of January with a general election to be held in March or early April. Now, Anutin Charnvirakul of the conservative Phum Jaithai party has become Thailand's 3rd prime minister since August 2023. He in fact took office in September after his predecessor was removed from office by the court over an ethics violation. Now, Chile is all set to hold a crucial presidential runoff on the 14th of December. If opinion polls are anything to go by, the country of 20 million people could elect its most right-wing president in recent times. The high-stakes election features 2 prominent candidates. The first is the communist Janet Jara. She's in fact the first to lead an alliance of Chile's political left. In the first round of elections, Jara secured 26.85% of the vote. Her rival and Republican Party founder, Jose Antonio Cast, secured about 23.92%. Multiple polls have put Cast as the front-runner. The presidential race has been dominated by public anxiety over the rising crime and irregular migration, but there's another worrisome issue that is lurking in the background, and many fear that the hard-won freedoms for women could in fact be rolled back. And both presidential candidates have offered different visions on abortion and gender equality. Now, Janet Jara has promised to legalize abortion up to 14 weeks, but her rival Antonio Cast opposes any liberalization in Chile's abortion law. He has long rejected contraception, divorce and same-sex marriage. Many fear that Cast's victory could spell the end of hard-earned freedoms for women.
I'm a bit scared, honestly, because I'm afraid Jose Antonio Cast will win. I feel we'll go backwards on the progress made by the current government. They lie when they say we're falling apart. However, we're doing very well economically, and we've improved many things like healthcare and education, which are things Chileans are asking for.
Chile has long been amongst Latin America's most conservative countries. Divorce became legal only in the year 2004. A total abortion ban was lifted in 2017. Now, human rights groups and labor unions gathered at the Plaza de Mayo in Buenos Aires for a rally marking International Human Rights Day. They also rejected Javier Milei's government policies they say undermine decades of progress. Take a look.
Today, the world is in a truly worrying situation, isn't it? An existential anguish. The situation of the United States with Venezuela is a declaration of war on the entire Latin American continent. This affects all of us, but we also have the bombings, the disregard for international law. They have violated all international treaties, all pacts and protocols.
All right, let's also now take a quick look at some of the other news stories from around the world that are making headlines in the world of politics. Now, Rahul Gandhi, the leader of the opposition in India's Lok Sabha, has called for an urgent debate on the country's worsening air pollution. He's called it a cross-party public health emergency and has said that this is a rare issue that both the government and also the opposition could agree upon. And India's Parliamentary Affairs Minister Kiran Rijiju has said that the government is willing to hold the discussion, and he said it will be scheduled pretty soon. And thousands took to the streets outside the iconic Colosseum in Rome to demonstrate against the 2026 budget proposed by Giorgia Meloni's government. And Italy's powerful CGIL trade union has called for a general strike on Friday to protest the upcoming budget. And reports say that the 2026 budget allocates more money for Italy's military rearmament. But the protesters say that this comes at the expense of funding for healthcare, schools, affordable housing and also public transport. In Slovakia, scuffles broke out in the parliament as the lawmakers revised the country's laws governing the whistleblowers and witnesses. The Slovakian government has said that the country's current whistleblower agency has been abused in the past. It also needs to be overhauled during the debate in the parliament. Some lawmakers were seen pushing each other, and one government deputy even threw a plastic bottle at an opposition member. And critics of the changes called the session the Quota Mafia Night and said that the changes could threaten the rule of law in Slovakia. The European Union has also raised concerns over the proposed changes. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Race to Power. This is Mohammed Saleh signing off. Thanks for watching.
Where darkness hides behind every corner. Where the truth is stranger than fiction. A show that dives deep into the stories which shock and mystify. Unsolved murders. Psychopaths who defy explanation. International war crimes. And millions swindled in financial fraud. The victims, the accused, and the sinister plot. Prime Crime is your front row seat to darkness.
As Golden Globes nominations build up anticipation for Hollywood's awards season, we take a look at the top contenders. No rare facts about Indian cinema icon Rajnikant. And find out what viral 2x2 fashion trend is all about. All this and much more with me, Diksha Bisla, on WION in these times.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World.